For months, Russia's deadliest drones were unstoppable. They flew without warning, struck without mercy, and worst of all, Ukraine couldn't even detect them. These weren't ordinary drones, they were fiber-optic-guided killers, immune to jamming, invisible to radar. They dominate the skies until now, because Ukraine's elite drone unit MADYAR'S just did the impossible. In a battlefield breakthrough caught on camera, they intercepted and destroyed one of Russia's most advanced stealth drones mid-air. The footage sent shockwaves across the front lines and panic through Russian command. So what are these mystery drones Russia's been using to terrorize the front? How did MADYAR'S figure out how to bring them down? And does this moment mark the beginning of the end for Russia's drone advantage? Let's find out, because Ukraine just turned the tide of drone warfare. We begin with the actual reports coming in from the MADYAR'S. Videos on the YouTube channel Kyiv Post, which publishes daily reports concerning the war in Ukraine, showcased video footage from FPV or first-person view drones flown by Ukraine's 414th Strike UAV Brigade, colloquially known as MADYAR'S. The video footage showed the FPV drone circling a Russian fiber-optic drone, which was previously considered to be nearly impossible to detect and intercept by the Ukrainian forces, at least by conventional means available to electronic warfare brigades in the past 3 years of war. The video footage clearly identified the Russian drone as a fiber-optic model, as evident by the cable casing on the backside of the drone and the tether that trailed behind the drone as it flew. The footage then showed the Ukrainian drone circling and maneuvering to a position above the Russian one, triggering a controlled explosion that would ultimately destroy both drones, at which point the footage ended. The Russian drone in question wasn't identified directly, as the Russian military uses a few different models of fiber-optic drones. However, it's believed that the drone belonged to the class called Prince Vandal of Novgorod and carried a modified RPG as its payload, which could be dropped onto its target. The Prince Vandal of Novgorod was previously referred to as one of Russia's most notorious drones. In his annual address posted by the Russian news agency TASS, Russian Novgorod region leader Andrei Nikitin mentioned that these drones were responsible for destroying over $300 million in NATO-donated assets across Ukraine over the past year. Nikitin praised the Russian military-industrial complex for developing the drone from scratch in under a year. So what exactly is the Prince Vandal? Russia's fiber-optic drones behave remarkably similarly to the more common FPV drones you might find on both sides of the front in Ukraine. Typically, a fiber-optics drone has the same base as a modified or a repurposed commercial drone used to make aerial photographs or video footage. In the footage provided by the Kyiv Post, the Prince Vandal model is seemingly based on a quadcopter, a common commercial drone seen throughout the war in Ukraine. Another similarity to most drones seen over the past few years is its explosive payload. The Prince is a kamikaze drone designed to crash directly into its target and detonate on impact, essentially turning its modified RPG warhead into a precision-guided explosive. However, this is a relatively new iteration of the design. Initially, the drones would carry whatever was available to the engineers retrofitting commercial drones into war machines. This meant that regular bombs, anti-tank mines, or grenades were all seen as possible explosive payloads that could be cycled through depending on the operational requirements that the drone brigades had at the time. Both Ukraine and Russia's military engineers have also experimented with different payload delivery methods. Some of the most common ones include straps or magnetic latches that could be undone remotely, allowing the payload to freely fall onto the target. However, this meant that the drone operator would have to be extremely precise about positioning a flying drone above its target and negating its forward momentum at the moment of the drop. Failure to do so could mean a miss and a squandered opportunity or the elimination of the drone itself. Kamikaze drones, i.e. the ones designed to be destroyed alongside their targets, have a few different detonation options as well. One of the more common options is simple, exposed wires in the front of the drone separated by a small air gap. When the drone hits a target head-on, the impact presses the two wires together, completing the circuit between the detonator and the explosive charge. A more high-tech version includes remote detonators that can receive signals from miles away to detonate the charge at any point. These are combined with shrapnel charges that can be devastating when used on infantry from low altitudes. And while most of these options are available to both the regular drones and the fabled fiber-optic drones, there's one key difference. While regular drones receive wireless signals from an operator with a controller who could be sitting a few miles away, fiber-optic drones carry a spool of a fiber optics cable that connects them to the controller. The cable is responsible for relaying all the signals, which means that the system is completely wired. This has a few major implications. First, with the connection between the drone and controller using fiber optics, the entire system is closed. This means that the drone doesn't accept foreign wireless signals, nor can it be hijacked by them. Similarly, the drone doesn't relay a wireless signal itself, making it undetectable to devices that listen for them, which have become the primary ways to track down drones on the battlefield. Secondly, since the connection uses fiber optics, it's much faster and more secure than a wireless signal. This works similarly to the Wi-Fi and internet cables in your house or office. In theory, a Wi-Fi signal travels at a speed comparable to that of a fiber optic signal. However, radio waves that are used in wireless transmissions bounce off any hard surfaces, interfering with each other and losing strength in the process. This can become a notable problem if too many devices operate on the same radio frequency, as the demodulators that convert these signals to actual data need to remove excess signals to get usable results. On the other hand, a fiber optics cable transmits its signal at around 2/3 the speed of light, incredibly fast, with minimal signal loss over the short distances these drones typically cover. This results in fiber optics drones being able to return pictures with much higher image fidelity and less delay, which allows greater clarity on the battlefield. For the first-person view drones, image quality can be key for spotting an enemy before they spot you, and the less delay can result in a quicker reaction time, which allows the operator greater flexibility during the mission and higher accuracy when delivering the payload. Fiber optics drones have two major limitations, those being the length of the cable that they carry and the added weight of the spool. Both of these mean that the average fiber optics drone needs to fly at lower altitudes and slower speeds than traditional FPV drones. However, the reduction in speed and maneuverability was considered an excellent trade-off for increased security and the ability to stay under the enemy's figurative radar. The fiber optics drones were first spotted after the Ukrainian incursion in Kursk in August 2024. At the time, Ukraine sported a significant electronic warfare advantage, using its own suite of drones to counter Russian intelligence gathering systems and push deeper into Russian territory while simultaneously denying Russia from doing the same. The fiber optic drones allowed Russia to stabilize the battlefront in Kursk, limiting Ukraine's ability to advance. Unlike conventional drones, these were nearly invisible to radio frequency detectors, making them harder to counter with standard electronic warfare tools. Additionally, the use of fiber optic drones allowed Russia to finally start pushing a bit deeper into Donbass. Indeed, the final months of 2024 saw Russia achieve some territorial gains in the region, compared to the negligible progress made previously. Using fiber optics this way showcased just how rapidly drone technology is advancing, outpacing traditional electronic warfare defenses and forcing militaries to scramble for new ways to respond, at least until now, because it seems Ukraine has found a way to fight back by using literal radar to hunt these drones down. Previously, drone detection relied on a mix of methods. Many focused on intercepting the signals drones used to transmit video and receive commands. Others, like Ukraine's acoustic detection systems, picked up the loud, piston-engined hum of kamikaze drones like the Shahid 136. But the backbone of most detection systems has been radio frequency, or RF, scanners. These devices sweep the area for signal emissions and can often trace them directly back to the drone, or even to its operators if they're nearby. To counter these detection methods, both Russia and Ukraine deployed a range of electronic jammers, devices capable of detecting and automatically scrambling radio signals within a few miles. These jammers targeted the very lifeline of most drones, their communication links. Some were compact enough to fit into a suitcase, yet powerful enough to cause serious disruption. As a result, traditional drones often had dismal success rates, only about 5 to 10% ever reached their intended targets. The fiber optic drones could ignore these defenses. With the system being closed, RF detectors had nothing to work with, so the drones wouldn't appear on any of the electronic surveillance maps that Ukraine would try to develop to counter the threat. Instead, the MADYAR'S Birds Battalion reverted to conventional anti-air methods to strike at drones: radar. Normally, most radar systems struggle to detect drones. A conventional radar array is designed to detect large moving targets at high speeds and altitudes and track their movements across vast distances. A radar uses radio waves in specific frequencies that are emitted across large areas. The radio wave bounces off any object it can find, eventually making it back to the radar array. By calculating the time it took for the wave to go and return, as well as the direction in which the bounced wave came, radar can determine the approximate distance of all given objects in the area. If you eliminate objects that haven't changed positions during the wave, you get a clear image of all moving targets in the area. However, regular radar arrays aren't meant to work with small objects like drones. The small, irregularly shaped hull of a drone doesn't create enough of a wave deflection to be quantifiable as an object in motion. This is somewhat similar to what stealth aircraft do to trick radar. Their radar signatures are small due to their irregular surfaces deflecting radio waves at odd angles, which means that not all of the intended waves come back to the antenna. Worse yet, most FPV drones, fiber optic ones included, fly at relatively low speeds and altitudes, especially when compared to a traditional manned or even unmanned aircraft. Their small size also allows them to fly in arboreal areas where trees would create significant obstacles that interrupt conventional radar waves and possibly create a large number of false positive targets. Furthermore, radars are calibrated to work at long distances, in the range of hundreds of miles. This means that they are early warning systems at best, only meant to capture the initial target when it's approaching from far away, allowing other, more precise targeting methods to take over after that. Against a small target like a drone that's being deployed only a few miles away from the front, a conventional radar might not even have the resolution necessary to catch it, with the radio wave's large amplitude completely missing the drone. This can essentially make the drone entirely invisible to conventional radar, or its position would flicker on and off, making traditional positioning and targeting much more difficult. What the Ukrainian military seems to have done is recalibrate their radars to specifically focus on smaller targets like drones. Understandably, the actual specifics behind which radars were affected or how the recalibration was done remains confidential, even a month after the initial reports of successful interceptions and takedowns of Russian drones. The radar modules, though their exact specifications remain classified, were deployed across the front line at intervals of 1.2 to 2.5 miles, forming an early warning net capable of detecting low-flying, low-speed threats like Russia's fiber-optic drones. That detection window is crucial, especially given that some of these drones, such as the Prince Vandal, can operate at distances of up to 10 kilometers or 6.25 miles from their launch point, thanks to their physical cable tether. Once tracked, Ukrainian operators can dispatch their own FPV drones to intercept, targeting the enemy before it can strike. This counter-tactic works especially well because it exploits one of the fiber-optic drone's biggest weaknesses, their lack of speed and agility. Due to a more robust cabling system to keep the connection with the operator intact, a fiber-optics drone weighs more than a regular FPV drone, carrying the same explosive payload. Additionally, the FPV drones aren't tethered and can perform more complex aerial maneuvers mid-air without potentially compromising the cable's integrity. These two factors allow the FPV drone to catch up to the fiber-optic model, circle around it, and deploy its ordnance. If the FPV drone is sent out at a correct angle, the fiber-optic model might not even spot it on its cameras, and its drone operator could be oblivious of the approaching danger. The radar in question is purported to have been modified to work with high-frequency radio signals or microwaves. These smaller waves provide a larger resolution at the cost of overall distance. Microwaves dissipate faster the further they go, which supports the reported range at which the Ukrainian military has been using them. However, there's a significant complication surrounding the novel drone capturing method that makes it somewhat unviable on a large scale. The modified radar array has an estimated coverage radius of just a few kilometers, likely no more than 2 to 3 miles, and many military analysts believe the system may be unidirectional, scanning only in a focused arc rather than in all directions. That combination of limited range and directional coverage presents a major logistical challenge. To monitor the entire front line, Ukraine would need to deploy hundreds, if not thousands, of these radar units at regular intervals, possibly every 2 to 4 kilometers, to ensure full battlefield visibility. With the front line between Russia and Ukraine stretching for over 600 miles and continuously changing, delivering the modified radars would be a tremendous logistical challenge for the Ukrainian military to overcome. Additionally, with the radar's limited range, they need to be placed much closer to the front lines than conventional radar arrays. This makes them more vulnerable to conventional methods of warfare, such as artillery, which at this point typically outranges small drones by a wide margin. Robert Brovdy, the founder and current commander of MADYAR'S birds, had suggested that the army must quickly and massively equip mobile versions of the radar every 2 to 4 kilometers, or 1.2 to 2.5 miles, along the front line, allowing conventional FPV fighters to destroy enemy FPVs on fiber optics intercepted by mobile radar. This showcases the operational importance of denying Russia from deploying these drones on the front line, as well as the potential danger they pose to troops, equipment, and vital military compounds. If Ukraine does manage to deploy the radars at a large scale, it could drastically improve the detection and hit rate of these systems and make it more effective at taking out one of Russia's most notorious pieces of electronic warfare yet. At the same time, however, there are a few vital challenges to overcome. First, the radar systems having a low range and being specifically calibrated for small, slow-moving targets makes them relatively useless against all other weapons. While this might not matter as much for a targeted system such as an anti-drone weapon, it increases the operational complexity of missions that the Ukrainian military conducts on the front lines. In every case, if Ukraine wants to deny Russia the opportunity to get vital intelligence via a fiber-optic drone, a battalion has to deploy the drone-catching radar and its supplemental systems to the front line in the area it wants to target. Secondly, with the systems being as short-range as they are, they might not be able to spot drones coming from longer distances. This might not be a problem for fiber-optics drones, but it prevents the radar system from being a catch-all solution for faster, more mobile drones that both militaries are known to operate. As such, they would form part of a larger electronic warfare solution that needs to be implemented at a wider scale throughout the military. Thirdly, the radar arrays having a small range means that they would only be effective close to the front line. Moving them there also means putting them and the people who will be operating the arrays and communication with the FPV drone operators in significantly more danger. In the worst-case scenario, a Russian offensive pushing the front line into Ukrainian territory a few miles means that radar systems would need to be repositioned or get lost entirely. If Russia engages in a decisive operation, the increased danger would prompt the radars to be moved. Considering that radar arrays typically need to be stationary to operate well, a combined Russian offensive composed of drones, artillery, and traditional infantry or mechanized infantry squads could overcome the Ukrainian defenses. There's also the matter of scaling and production efforts. Because of how novel the concept is, it's unclear just how many radars Ukraine can modify to be deployed to the front lines. Both Russia and Ukraine are rapidly increasing their production capacities for electronic warfare, and drones in particular. In 2024, Zelensky suggested that Ukraine produced over 2.2 million drones in that year, surpassing its target of 1 million. At the same time, Russia is believed to have the industrial capacities to create 3 to 4 million drones over 2025. Simultaneously, both Russia and Ukraine are dependent on importing vital drone technology in parts, particularly from China and the US, respectively. Given recent trends, the Ukrainian production lines could be in a state of flux, considering that the US recently halted support and donations for an entire week. With the US administration intent on closing the war as soon as possible, similar suspensions on donations could follow in the coming months. Conversely, Russia has enjoyed China's support throughout the war, even if it was relatively minor or unpublicized. China is one of the world's biggest exporters of technology, particularly computer chips, and its long-standing trade agreements with Russia only increased during the war, which has helped Russia fuel its economy and industry alike. With all this in mind, the pressure is on Ukraine to stay ahead of Russia in nearly every emerging method of modern warfare. So far, they've managed to catch up, developing both a countermeasure to Russian fiber-optic drones and a domestic version of the technology. Ukraine's new models tap into the same advantages: immunity to jamming, secure control, and reliable targeting. But according to Ukrainian military officials, these designs have only just reached parity with Russia's basic models. Now the challenge is even greater. Ukraine must surpass Russia, not just in innovation, but in scale and quality. And the question hanging over everyone's head is, how long can they keep that edge? What do you think? What impact will this new drone catching method have on the war? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you, as always, for watching.